Hello and welcome back to the Villa podcast. Just me on my pod today. Billy no mates because Dan is still doing some really cool stuff out in the US with goal. Unfortunately, he's not following the Villa. He's got the hard old time of covering teams like Real Madrid and AC Milan in their recent friendly. He's doing amazing things. So if you're keen to check out exactly what he's up to, go and check out his socials because I promise you some of the access he's had, it's just been so cool. He's been getting up close and personal with the likes of Jude Bellingham, Rafael Leao, Luka Modric, Vinicius Jr. It's been a blast. Super proud of him. And if you're listening, mate, keep doing the God's work. So you just got me, unfortunately, your solo host, Dan Wiseman, to break down what's been a very, very busy Monday for Aston Villa Football Club. I've got to be honest, I'm a working man. So that's why this recording to you is coming to you at 8 p.m. rather than 8 a.m. I unfortunately didn't stay up to watch the Villa game because of work in the morning, but make sure to catch up on things, watch the highlights, see the game. It looks like, for the most part, we played really, really well, and so just wanted to hop on the mic tonight to go through the game in a little bit more detail, who played well, who not there wasn't anyone that didn't play well, but any minor points for concern. Some surprises as well, because we had some players that definitely cropped up and caught the eye of the fan base. And then as we've gone on through the day, there's been a transfer that, not necessarily today, but for the last few days, has kind of been rumbling on in the background that I just wanted to briefly touch base on. You've seen it in the title as well, that in the last couple of hours, it seemed like, and I say seemed in the past tense, hopefully, that Inter Milan had made a pretty underwhelming approach for Emi Martinez. So we'll go through all of that in this episode. We're going to run through it quickly because you don't want to hear me yabble on for far too long. So let's start at the top of the show. The 3-3 draw with Newcastle, and a very entertaining game it was. I thought the 3 goals that we scored were very good, in contrast to the 3 goals that we conceded. I thought Buendia looked like an absolute monster. 2 goals and an assist. Kind of played off the left in terms of the formation, but created the majority of his chances through the middle, and he was picking up some really nice spaces between the midfield and the defence, operating in those spaces that he'd like to. Genuinely incredible effect. It didn't look like a player that was just 2 games. Well, yeah, like a game and a half into pre-season, he only sort of played 60 minutes. He looked like a player that was coming to the end of the season in May and he was in tip-top condition. Whatever he's been doing through the summer, he's clearly been putting the work in because he looked razor sharp yesterday. Even the chance at the very end where he tries to go around, I think it's Dubravka with the kind of step over and there's a ball roll. The footwork is amazing. Can't quite sort it out in time to slot it inside the near post, but still, the trickery and the footwork was just amazing. And I was so impressed by Buendia physically as well. The way that obviously he shrugs off Sandro Tonali in the run through for the first goal was kind of the pinnacle of that. But I thought generally he just looked so strong, so burly, whereas obviously Emi's been quite a feisty character for all his time at Villa and at Norwich, it seems, but kind of really looked like he had the physicality to back that up yesterday. So that could be a real one to watch, because with all this talk of wingers coming in and Diaby obviously announced, and with the squad now in the States, not that Buendia's under some pressure, I don't think we're looking to get him off the books or anything like that, but it kind of feels like open fire, like for those wing spots. Whoever plays best, whoever impresses Emery the most, can claim one of those spots. And that leads me on to another performer that I thought stood out yesterday, and that was Jadon Philogene. I thought he caused Matt Targett some real problems, and that's particularly interesting because you have to imagine that that's not the first time those two have squared up. You imagine that's happened on the training pitch quite a few times. I thought Philogene, coming off that loan last season in the Championship, it seems like plenty of Championship clubs are interested again. I think, not to sound like a broken record, but you guys, long-time listeners, will know how I feel about just the loan cycle in general. I think 1 or 2 loans can be good for development, but I think once you start getting into the territory of 3 or 4, you have to make a shot on a player. And my only, not to take anything away from how well he played yesterday, because he really impressed, but have we not seen this before from Jadon Philogene? Do we not go through this most pre-seasons where we see him in a pre-season game, be it at Warsaw or whatever, and he looks really good, and then there's always just, I don't know. But Amari Kellerman is another one coming through the academy, just 17 years old. Looked really strong, really sharp. Didn't look out of place at all out on that pitch. Looks like he might need one of those, as I said, constructive loans, because we really need to start charting the progression for these players into the first team, because I feel like Jaden Philogene is a good example of one that's kind of in the mire, maybe probably too good for another loan, not quite good enough for the first team, and unfortunately that kind of comes into the territory where I think you need to look at a sale, but we'll see what the Villa do on that front. I thought Diego Carlos looked a little bit rusty. Take nothing from that. It's expected. I do have some fears. 30-odd-year-old centre-back coming back from a knee injury like that, it can be quite dangerous territory, really. But we'll see what happens with Carlos, because it wasn't all doom and gloom. It was probably for Robin Olsen, who I thought looked on the distribution front pretty rusty again, playing some suicidal passes out from the backup points that almost cost the Villa. But thankfully, we come out with a 3-3 draw. I'm not going to talk it to death, because we've all watched the highlights by now, and no doubt there's been plenty of other podcasts in the Villa sphere that have covered it before I've managed to get to it. So that was kind of my bullet points on what looked good, what didn't. But overall, I thought Villa played really well. Unai seemed really happy, which is great. Thought all of our goals were really good. I thought the Villa fans out in Philly, you guys were amazing as well. No doubt we'll have a couple of you listening to the podcast in full voice. Looked like you guys had a great day. I'm so jealous that I wasn't out there with you. But Villa are off to Florida today, I think, at the time of recording. They're probably in the air ahead of our game with Fulham on Wednesday. Unfortunately, to the Villa fans here in the UK, that's the same kickoff time at midnight. So it's kind of Wednesday in the States, Thursday morning here in the UK. We'll then return to Washington later next week, set up base in the capital before we head out to Maryland for a game against Brentford on Sunday. So it's all action in terms of Villa's US tour, and it's all action on the transfer front as well, because yes, it looks like, or it's very hard to say, but apparently there's been some journalists sort of reporting that Inter have made a €15 million bid for Emi Martinez. That comes in at about £12 million for some context. Sort of saying that the agent has made contact with the player. Inter are reportedly looking to come back in with a higher offer. I think they'll at least have to triple it to get Villa to the table. I'd be very surprised if we're selling for, and I think 30-40 million has to be the absolute lowest. I think whereas Villa were more likely to hold out for 50-60 than anything else. It looks like it's come from an Argentinian journalist, which is interesting, because Emi does actually follow him on Twitter, which is where this rumor has really started to pick up some legs. Gianluca Di Marzio, however, which is a slightly more reliable name that I think many of you would have heard of, very famous Italian footballing journalist, has since said that there's been no confirmation of this offer, and that Inter's priority remains Jan Sommer, who's coming in from Bayern, who Bayern signed from Mönchengladbach earlier on this year to fill the gap from Manuel Neuer, who was obviously injured on that ski trip. So it's all go. There's a lot of moving parts. Looks like it could be a real triangle in terms of how, if that deal is to fall. I personally, we know how Emi speaks. We know how he speaks about playing in the club in Europe, and he made some contents just the other day to some Villa fans in Philly, sort of saying that, his goal was to get Villa into Europe, and now he's there. His goal is to go on and win it. We know how he feels about this club. I think at his stage of his career, he would have to choose and move wisely, and probably quite soon if he wanted to get a move in before his career. The only sort of thing I would say is that Dan and I have been on podcasts where we've discussed rumours that have come in for goalkeepers, and we've been quite surprised by the calibre of goalkeeper that we've been linked with. I can't remember too many off the top of my head, but one of them that stands out is Georgi Mamadashvili, who's obviously the first choice goalkeeper at Valencia, one of the strongest young goalkeepers in Spain, if not in Europe. And he's been really impressive for Valencia. We may well see Villa test their luck against him when we head out to Spain to play them at the Mestalla. But we have had 2 or 3 goalkeeping links like that very much aren't second choice goalkeeper. You're not going to get someone like Georgi Mamadashvili to come in and play backup to Emi Martinez. It's quite a specific role, and we've been targeting first choice goalkeepers. So something interesting. I don't know how much faith there was, how much truth there was in those rumours. It's all very pie in the sky. Some of it absolute nonsense, no doubt. But I'd be very surprised if we're looking to sell Martinez this window. And if we do, I'd be very surprised, very, very surprised, in fact, if it's anything close to 15 million. But in and around the same ballpark, actually, is a link that came up a few days ago. There's been a lot of kind of movement on this front. So many clubs are interested in this young lad, Ivan Fresneda, the teenage sensation that played for relegated Real Valladolid last season, who missed out on survival in La Liga by a point. It was such a cruel relegation for them. Almeria just picked them to the post and secured La Liga survival. Valladolid went down, which means that Ivan Fresneda, one of the best teenage starlets in Spanish football, make no mistake about it, certainly in the fullback position, is on the market. And he's a real old school fullback. And this is why it's interesting, because it feels like, Dan and I have been talking about how we're probably going to start seeing Villa tilt that formation towards the left-hand side, really allowing Moreno to bomb up down that left wing, which means that someone like Juan Foyt, who Emery used at Villarreal, compared to a Purvis Estupiñán, who was on the left wing, who is obviously now at Brighton, that's the kind of tilt that Emery's worked with in the past. And Fresneda would allow us to do that because he's a really old school fullback. Played a lot of football. He was really relied on by Valladolid, considering he's just a teenager. Only Gavi played more minutes as a teenager in the whole of La Liga last season than Fresneda. Clocked up over 1,700 minutes. One of the best 1v1 defenders in Spain, ranked 4th in La Liga last season for tackles made by any player under the age of 21. He was actually level with another Valencia player, Yunus Musa. He's been rumoured to join so many teams. Honestly, I've seen Newcastle linked, Milan, Barcelona, Real Madrid, all of them. That was just done a quick scan through Twitter to catch on the latest links to Fresneda. They're all in there, but Villa are in there too. We're actually competing primarily, it seems, against another Premier League club. And it might surprise you because it's Bournemouth, of all teams. Reports suggest that Bournemouth has tabled 17 million euros plus add-ons. It looks like Fresneda, for some context, has a release clause of around 20 million euros. But the reason why that Fresneda is currently looking perhaps more favourably on Bournemouth is because of the presence of Andoni Iraola as a coach who's just come in to replace the sacked Gary O'Neill from Spain. And it's hard to say because Iraola did some fantastic things in his time at Spain and he's very highly regarded. It looks like, thankfully, we could have a similar kind of pull given that we have Unai Emery. But it will be really interesting to see how that comes through because, as I said, I think Andoni Iraola has certainly won over a lot of players in Spain. His teams have been notoriously really fun to watch. He had a really good team going at Rayo Vallecano last season who was so enjoyable, and it's understandable why a lot of teams would want to go and play for him. But we'll have to see how that one develops. We've also got a number of sales in the works as well. I just wanted to quickly run you through in case you've missed your daily Twitter bulletin. It looks like Wesley is going out on loan until Watford, of all teams. He could be joining Keenan Davis on loan in the Championship. Luton, however, of the Premier League now, are also reportedly interested in Keenan Davis. Looks like a package of around 4 to 7 million is likely for Keenan Davis, which I think is a good price, but also probably a fair one. I'd be surprised if Villa were looking to get anything like double digits for Keenan Davis. And I think that would price out a lot of Championship teams, to be honest with you. Looks like Morgan Sanson could be going to Nice on loan with an option to buy. I feel so sorry for Morgan Sanson. We need to find him a permanent home as soon as we can. And then a really strange link between Leon Bailey and Al Nassr, who are the club that obviously missed out on Moussa Diaby. I don't expect too much out of that one, to be honest with you. I also saw today that we're now 1-1 to sign Wilfried Gnonto from Leeds. So depending on how that move goes, if we see any more reports on that over the coming days, I'll hop on the mic to run you guys through what was a very promising season indeed for Gnonto at Leeds after he arrived on a real budget free. I imagine Leeds will be looking forward to making a pretty sizable profit on the young Italian starlet. So let's see how that one goes. If it hots up, I'll hop back on the mic in the next couple of days to report back to you on that one. But that has kind of been my flash bulletin on the last couple of days, guys. I'm really enjoying seeing Villa out in the States. I'm loving that so many of you guys in the States are getting to watch and enjoy Villa on your time zone getting involved with the community. Seems like they've been doing some great stuff out there. So keep enjoying that. We've obviously got a whole nother week of it, which is great. I'll be back certainly later on this week to discuss the other games. It's not before, depending on how the transfer rumours goes. But as always, guys, thank you very much for watching. Dan is going to be back in the near future as well, so we will be reunited as a duo. So make sure you hit subscribe, like, and leave your thoughts below on what's been a very busy day. The draw with Newcastle, how did you feel about it? Who stood out? Who impressed? Who didn't? Emi Martinez, what's the lowest you'd take? The Argentinian shot stopper, Ivan Fresneda as well. Did this sound like the kind of right back that you could see Villa signing? And then a lot of outgoings as well. Wesley, Sanson, Davis, it's all going on. Who do you think needs to be gone as Villa look to trim the fat around the first team squad this summer? So guys, make sure you hit the link tree in the description as well, because that'll take you to a whole bunch of exclusive Villa filler content that you don't want to miss out on. But in the meantime, stay safe. Thank you very much for watching.